Up is a 2009 American computer-animated comedy-drama-adventure film produced by Pixar Animation Studios and released by Walt Disney Pictures. The film centers on an elderly widower named Carl Fredricksen, Ed Asner, and an earnest boy named Russell, Jordan Nagai, by tying thousands of balloons to his house. Carl sets out to fulfill his dream to see the wilds of South America and complete a promise made to his late wife, Ellie. The film was directed by Pete Docter and co-directed by Bob Peterson, who also wrote the film's screenplay with Docter, as well as the story with Tom McCarthy. The music was composed by Michael Giacchino, who had also composed music for The Incredibles and Ratatouille. Docter began working on the story in 2004 called Heliums, which was based on fantasies of escaping from life when it becomes too irritating. He and 11 other Pixar artists spent 3 days in Venezuela gathering research and inspiration. The designs of the characters were caricatured and stylized considerably, and animators were challenged with creating realistic cloth. It was Pixar's first film to be presented in Disney Digital 3D. 3. Up was released on May 29, 2009, and opened the 2009 Cannes Film Festival, becoming the first animated and 3D film to do so. 4. The film grossed over $735 million, becoming the sixth highest-grossing film of 2009. The film received widespread acclaim from critics and audiences, with many calling it one of the best animated films of all time. 5. Asner's vocal performance and Michael Giacchino's score were praised, as was the montage of Carl and his wife Ellie growing old together. The film won 2 Academy Awards, including Best Animated Feature, and was nominated for 3 more, including Best Picture, making it the second animated film in history to receive such a nomination, and the first Pixar film to do so, following Beauty and the Beast, 1991. Young Carl Fredricksen idolizes famous explorer Charles F. Muntz. When accused of fabricating the skeleton of a giant bird he brought back from Paradise Falls in South America, Muntz leaves and vows not to return until he has captured one alive. Carl meets a girl named Ellie, also a Muntz fan, who confides her desire to move her clubhouse, an abandoned house in the neighborhood, to a cliff overlooking Paradise Falls. The two later marry and live in the restored house, and Carl works as a balloon salesman. Suffering a miscarriage, 7, and unable to have children, they decide to save up to go to Paradise Falls, but are constantly forced to spend their savings on more urgent needs. Now elderly, Carl finally arranges for the trip, but Ellie falls ill and dies. Years later, Carl, now retired, stubbornly holds out in the house while the neighborhood around him is replaced by skyscrapers. When Carl accidentally injures a construction worker, the court deems him a public menace and orders him to move to a retirement home. However, Carl resolves to keep his promise to Ellie to go to Paradise Falls, turning his house into a makeshift airship using thousands of helium balloons and flying away. Russell, a young, wilderness explorer, who visits Carl in an effort to earn his final merit badge for assisting the elderly, becomes an accidental stowaway. Before Carl can land and return Russell, they encounter a storm which drives them all the way to South America. The house lands on a tepui opposite Paradise Falls. Carl and Russell harness themselves to the still buoyant house and begin to walk it across the mesa, hoping to reach the falls before the balloons deflate. Russell encounters a giant, colorful flightless bird, whom he names Kevin. They then meet a golden retriever named Doug, who wears a special collar that allows him to speak and who vows to take the bird to his master. The next day, they encounter a pack of aggressive dogs led by Alpha, a Doberman Pinscher, and are taken to their master, who turns out to be an elderly Charles Muntz. Muntz invites Carl and Russell aboard his dirigible, where he explains that he is still searching for his giant bird. When Russell notes the skeleton's resemblance to Kevin, Muntz becomes hostile, believing they are attempting to capture the bird themselves. Carl, Russell and Doug flee, and are pursued by the dogs. Kevin saves them, injuring her leg in the process. Carl agrees to help her get home, but just as Kevin is ready to reunite with her chicks, Muntz captures her and starts a fire beneath Carl's house, forcing him to choose between saving it or Kevin. Carl saves the house and eventually reaches the falls. But Russell is upset at Carl for abandoning Kevin. Carl looks through Ellie's childhood scrapbook and is surprised to find that she has filled in the blank pages with photos of their marriage, along with a note written from her hospital bed, thanking him for the adventure, and encouraging him to have a new one. Reinvigorated, Carl goes outside, only to see Russell flying away, using some balloons and a leaf blower, to rescue Kevin. Carl throws out his furniture and keepsakes, lightening the house enough to follow. Muntz captures Russell, but Carl and Doug board the dirigible and free both Russell and Kevin. Muntz pursues them to Carl's house, but they escape by jumping back to the airship, while Muntz gets caught on some balloon lines and falls to his death. The house, having lost too many balloons, descends out of sight through the clouds. Carl and Russell reunite Kevin with her chicks and fly the dirigible back home, taking all of Muntz's dogs with them. Russell receives his "assisting the elderly" badge, and Carl presents Russell with a grape soda bottle cap that Ellie gave to Carl when they first met, which he now dubs the Ellie badge. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to Carl, his house has landed on the cliff beside Paradise Falls, fulfilling his promise to Ellie. Voice cast: Edit, Ed Asner as Carl Fredrickson, a retired salesman and widower who flies his house to Paradise Falls to fulfill a childhood dream he shared with his late wife Ellie. Doctor and Rivera noted Asner's television alter ego, Lou Grant, had been helpful in writing for Carl because it guided them in balancing likable and unlikable aspects of the curmudgeonly character. 8. When they met Asner and presented him with a model of his character, he joked, "I don't look anything like that." The appearance of Carl is meant to resemble Spencer Tracy as he appeared in his final film, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? 9. They tailored his dialogue for him, with short sentences and more consonants, which cemented the notion that Carl, post-Ellie, is a disgruntled bear that's been poked awake during hibernation. 10. Jeremy Leary as young Carl Fredrickson, Jordan Nagai as Russell, a wilderness explorer of Asian American descent who is trying to earn a merit badge for assisting the elderly, and becomes a stowaway on Carl's house as it flies to Paradise Falls. Throughout most of the film, he makes several comments to Carl that suggest that Russell's father and mother are no longer together. 11. Christopher Plummer as Charles F. Muntz, a renowned explorer who claims to have discovered a species of giant bird and has not been seen since vowing to bring a live specimen from South America. The name of his airship, the Spirit of Adventure, may have been inspired by Charles Lindbergh's airplane, Spirit of St. Louis. 12. In various interviews, Pete Docter has mentioned Howard Hughes and real-life adventurers Charles Lindbergh and Percy Fawcett as inspirations for months. 13. Bob Peterson as Doug, the golden retriever misfit of Muntz's pack of dogs that can all communicate with humans through a device on each of their collars. 12. Peterson knew he would voice Doug when he wrote his line, "I have just met you, and I love you," which was based on what a child told him when he was a camp counselor in the 1980s. The DVD release of the film features a short called Doug's Special Mission, which follows Doug just before his first meeting with Carl and Russell. Doug previously appeared in Ratatouille as a shadow on a wall that barks at Remy. 12. Alpha, the Doberman Pinscher leader. Pete Docter has stated that Alpha thinks of himself as Clint Eastwood, despite his menacing appearance. A frequent malfunction in Alpha's translating collar causes his voice to sound comically high-pitched and squeaky, as if he had inhaled helium. The normal voice for his translator is a resonant, intimidating bass. In either voice, Alpha has a roundabout speech pattern that causes his sentences to be longer than necessary. Pete Docter as Kevin, the Beast of Paradise Falls. Campmaster Strouch, Russell's scout leader, seen at the end of the film. Elizabeth Docter as Ellie, a bold and adventurous young girl who meets Carl in their childhood when he walks into her home and eventually marries him as an adult. The voice actor is the director's daughter, 14, who also provided some of the drawings shown by Ellie. Elizabeth only voiced Ellie as a child, as the adult Ellie had no spoken lines. 15. Delroy Lindo as Beta, a Rottweiler, 12, and one of Muntz's dogs. Jerome Ranf as Gamma, a Bulldog, 12, and one of Muntz's dogs. John Ratzenberger is Tom, the construction worker who asks if Carl is ready to sell his house. 12. David Kay as the newsreel announcer. Danny Mann as Steve, a construction worker whom Carl injures with his walking stick after he accidentally damages Carl's mailbox, landing Carl in court. Mickey McGowan as Edith, a police officer who brings Carl home after his court appointment. Don Fullerlove and Jess Harnell as George and AJ, two nurses who work at Shady Oaks Retirement Village. Production. Development. Edit. Director Pete Docter began writing up in 2004 under the title of Heliums. He developed the fantasy of a flying house on the idea of escaping from life when it becomes too irritating. 13, 16, which stemmed from his difficulty with social situations growing up. 17, actor and writer Tom McCarthy aided Docter and Bob Peterson in shaping the story for about 3 months. 18. Docter selected an old man for the main character after drawing a picture of a grumpy old man with smiling balloons. 18. The two men thought an old man was a good idea for a protagonist because they felt their experiences and the way they affect their view of the world was a rich source of humor. Docter was not concerned about an elderly protagonist, stating that children would relate to Carl the way they relate to their grandparents. Early concepts differed from the final film. The initial version featured a floating city on an alien planet populated with Muppet-like creatures. 19, with two brothers vying to inherit their father's kingdom. And when the brothers fell to Earth, they encountered a tall bird who helped them understand each other. But the story just didn't seem to work properly. And Docter and Peterson realized that the most intriguing element was the isolation of the floating city. Yet the people living there would consist of a whole community, and were therefore not really isolated. so the whole city was stripped down to a single flying house with just a single occupant, where balloons replaced the magic which kept the floating city up. After that they got the idea to use an old person, and found the contrast between the elderly grumpy man and the happy balloons in Doctor's drawing appealing, inspiring them to work out his backstory. The next concept introduced many of the elements that eventually made their way into the film. But had Carl and Russell landing the house on a Soviet-era spy airship camouflaged as a giant cloud rather than on a tepui. This concept was rewritten due to its similarity to another idea Pixar was developing. Another idea Doctor added, then removed, was magic fountain of youth eggs laid by the bird. In order to explain the age discrepancy between Muntz and Carl, but they decided this subplot was too distracting, and people would forgive the minor inconsistency. 2021. Also, the biggest single influence on Up early on was The Station Agent, by Tom McCarthy. Doctor noted the film reflects his friendships with Disney veterans Frank Thomas, Ollie Johnston, and Joe Grant, who all died before the film's release, and thus the film was dedicated to them. Grant gave the script his approval as well as some advice before his death in 2005. 23. Doctor recalled Grant would remind him the audience needed an emotional bedrock because of how wacky the adventure would become. Here it is Carl mourning for his wife. 18. Doctor felt Grant's personality influenced Carl's deceased wife Ellie more than the grouchy main character. 23. And Carl was primarily based on Spencer Tracy, Walter Matthau, James Whitmore, and their own grandparents. Because there was something sweet about these grumpy old guys. 9. 24. Doctor and Jonas Rivera noted Carl's charming nature in spite of his grumpiness derives from the elderly, ing, this charm. And almost this, old man license, to say things that other people couldn't get away with. It's like how we would go to eat with Joe Grant and he would call the waitresses, honey. I wish I could call a waitress, honey. Doctor revealed the filmmaker's first story outline had Carl just want ing to join his wife up in the sky. It was almost a kind of strange suicide mission or something. And obviously that's a problem. Once he gets airborne, then what? So we had to have some goal for him to achieve that he had not yet gotten. 14. As a result, they added the plot of going to South America. The location was chosen due to both Doctor's love of tropical locations, but also in wanting a location Carl could be stuck with a kid due to the inability to leave him with an authority such as a police officer or social worker. They implemented a child character as a way to help Carl stop being stuck in his way. Doctor created Doug as he felt it would be refreshing to show what a dog thinks, rather than what people assume it thinks. 27. Knowledge of canine communication. Body language and pack behaviors for the artists and animators to portray such thoughts came from consultant Dr. Ian Dunbar, veterinarian, dog behaviorist, and trainer. 28. The idea for Alpha's voice derived from thinking about what would happen if someone broke a record player and it always played at a high pitch. 18. Russell was added to the story at a later date than Doug and Kevin. 18. His presence, as well as that of the construction workers, helped to make the story feel less episodic. Russell's design was based on Pixar animator Peter Sohn, 29, who is Korean American. The Pixar employees frequently sketch each other during meetings, and a drawing of Sohn became the model for Russell. 30. Doctor auditioned 400 boys in a nationwide casting call for the part. 16. Nagai, who is Japanese American, 31, showed up to an audition with his brother, who was actually the one auditioning. Doctor realized Nagai behaved and spoke non-stop like Russell and chose him for the part. 18. Nagai was 8 years old when cast. 16. Doctor encouraged Nagai to act physically as well as vocally when recording the role, lifting him upside down and tickling him for the scene where Russell encounters Kevin. 10. East Asian Americans have positively noted Pixar's first casting of an East Asian lead character, 32-33, in contrast to the common practice of casting non-East Asians in East Asian parts. 34. Particularly in the role of an all-American boy without any stereotypes typically seen with East Asian characters, such as martial arts. Carl's relationship with Russell reflects how he's not really ready for the whirlwind that a kid is. As few of us are. 23. Doctor added he saw Up as a coming-of-age tale and an unfinished love story, with Carl still dealing with the loss of his wife. 36. He cited inspiration from Casablanca and A Christmas Carol, which are both resurrection stories about men who lose something and regain purpose during their journey. 37. Doctor and Rivera cited inspirations from The Muppets, Hayao Miyazaki, Dumbo, and Peter Pan. They also saw parallels to The Wizard of Oz and tried to make Up not feel too similar. 38. There is a scene where Carl and Russell haul the floating house through the jungle. A Pixar employee compared the scene to Fitzcarraldo, and Doctor watched that film and the mission for further inspiration. 39. The character Charles Muntz comes from Howard Hughes and Errol Flynn. Animation, edit. Doctor and 11 other Pixar artists visited Tepuis in Venezuela in 2004 for research. Doctor made Venezuela the film's setting after Ralph Eggleston gave him a video of the Tepuy Mountains of Canema National Park. 13, 23, 41. Tepuis were previously featured in another Disney film, Dinosaur. In 2004, Doctor and 11 other Pixar artists spent 3 days reaching Monte Roraima by airplane, by jeep, and by helicopter. 12. They also spent 3 nights there painting and sketching. 42. And encountering ants, mosquitoes, scorpions, frogs, and snakes. They then flew to Matawi Tepui and climbed to Angel Falls. 12. Doctor felt, we couldn't use the rocks and plants we saw. Reality is so far out. If we put it in the movie you wouldn't believe it. 9. The film's creatures were also challenging to design because they had to fit in the surreal environment of the Tepuis. But also they had to be realistic because those mountains exist in real life. 23. The filmmakers then visited the Sacramento Zoo to observe a Himalayan monal for Kevin's animation. 2. The animators designed Russell as an Asian American and modeled Russell after similar-looking Peter Sohn, a Pixar storyboarder who voiced Emile in Ratatouille and directed the short Partly Cloudy, because of his energetic nature. While Pixar usually designs their characters to be caricatured, Carl was even more so, being only at least 3 heads high. 44. He was not given elderly features such as liver spots or hair in his ears to keep him appealing, yet giving him wrinkles, pockmarks on his nose, a hearing aid, and a cane to make him appear elderly. Doctor wanted to push a stylized feel, particularly the way Carl's head is proportioned. He has a squarish appearance to symbolize his containment within his house, while Russell is rounded like a balloon. 10. The challenge on Up was making these stylized characters feel natural. 13. Although Doctor remarked the effect came across better than animating the realistic humans from Toy Story, who suffered from the uncanny valley. 23. Cartoonists Al Hirschfeld, Hank Ketchum, and George Booth influenced the human designs. 18. 37. 45. Simulating realistic cloth on caricatured humans was harder than creating the 10,000 balloons flying the house. 17. New programs were made to simulate the cloth and for Kevin's iridescent feathers. 46. To animate old people. Pixar animators would study their own parents or grandparents and also watched footage of the Senior Olympics. 8. The directors had various rules for Carl's movements. He could not turn his head more than 15 to 20 degrees without turning his torso as well, nor could he raise his arms high. However, they also wanted him to grow more flexible near the end of the film, transforming into an action hero. A technical director calculated that to make Carl's house fly, he would require 23 million balloons, but Doctor realized that such a high number made the balloons look like small dots. Instead, the balloons created were made to be twice Carl's size. There are 10,297 balloons for shots of the house just flying, 20,622 balloons for the lift-off sequence, and a varying number in other scenes. Up is the third Pixar film to be scored by Michael Giacchino, after The Incredibles and Ratatouille. What Pete Docter wanted most importantly out of the music was the emotion. So Giacchino wrote a character theme-based score that producer Jonas Rivera thought enhanced the story. At the beginning of the movie, when young Carl is in the movie theater watching a newsreel about Muntz, the first piece of music heard is Muntz's theme, which starts out as a celebratory theme and echoes through the film when Muntz reappears 70 years later. Ellie's theme is first heard when she is introduced as a little kid and plays several times during the film in different versions. For instance, during the sequence where Carl lifts his house with the balloons, the theme is changed from a simple piano melody to a full orchestral arrangement. Giacchino has compared the film to opera since each character has a unique theme that changes during a particular moment in the story. 47. The score was released as a digital download on May 26, 2009. 3 days before the film opened in theaters. It won the Academy Award for Best Original Score. 48. The Grammy Award for Best Score Soundtrack Album. 49. The Golden Globe Award for Best Original Score. 50. And the 2010 BAFTA Award for Best Film Music. 51. It is the first score for a Pixar film to win the Oscar. Randy Newman also won for Monsters, Inc. and Toy Story 3, but in the category of Best Original Song. Marketing and release. Edit. George Lucas with the film's protagonists at the 66th Venice International Film Festival in September 2009 when the film screened at the El Capitan Theater in Hollywood, California. From May 29 to July 23, 2009, it was accompanied by Lighten Up, a live show featuring Disney characters. 52. Other tie-ins included children's books such as My Name is Doug, illustrated by screenwriter Ronnie Del Carmen. 53. Despite Pixar's track record, Target Corporation and Walmart stocked few Up items. While Pixar's regular collaborator Thinkway Toys did not produce merchandise, claiming its story is unusual and would be hard to promote. Disney acknowledged not every Pixar film would have to become a franchise. 2. Promotional partners include Aflac, 54, NASCAR, and Airship Ventures, 55, 56, while Cluster Balloons promoted the film with a replica of Carl's couch lifted by hot air balloons for journalists to sit on. 57, in Colombia. Unexpected publicity for the film was generated due to the uncanny similarity of Carl with Colombian ex-president Julio César Turbay Ayala. Prior to the film's worldwide release date, Pixar granted a wish from 10-year-old Colby Curtin to see the film before she died. Colby had a rare form of vascular cancer and was too sick to go to a theater. A Pixar employee flew to the Curtins' house with a DVD of the finished film and screened it for her and her family. Curtin died 7 hours later at 9:20 p.m., shortly after seeing the film. 60, Pete Docter, left. Jonas Rivera, right. In 2009 with Cusi TV's Phil Constantine, director Pete Docter intended for audiences to take a specific point from the film, saying, basically, the message of the film is that the real adventure of life is the relationship we have with other people. And it's so easy to lose sight of the things we have and the people that are around us until they are gone. More often than not. I don't really realize how lucky I was to have known someone until they're either moved or passed away. So, if you can kind of wake up a little bit and go, wow, I've got some really cool stuff around me every day, then that's what the movie's about. 61 episodes. Prior to its theatrical release, Disney Pixar created 3 small animated vignettes called episodes to promote Up on the Internet. 62, these episodes chronicled Carl Fredricksen and Russell's journey through the jungle, which are not seen in the movie. Fans were able to view the vignettes on both Apple iTunes movie trailer site and YouTube. Episode 1, Animal Calls. In the first episode, Russell demonstrates his ability to mimic animal calls. Episode 2, First Aid. In the second episode, Russell tries to relieve a minor injury that Carl received. Episode 3, Snipe Trap. In the third and final episode, Russell attempts to capture the elusive snipe. Home Media, edit. Up was released on Blu-ray disc and DVD in the United States and Canada on November 10, 2009. 63. It features the film plus the theatrical short Partly Cloudy and the new short Doug's Special Mission, as well as an audio commentary by director Pete Docter. Adventure Is Out There, a documentary about the filmmaker's research journey to South America. The Many Endings of Months, an alternate ending of sorts, and a digital copy. The Blu-ray edition has a 4-disc pack that adds Cine Explore with bonus view, Global Guardian badge and geography games. 8 documentaries, and BD Live to the deluxe DVD and digital copy platters. A limited edition, known as the Luxo Jr. Premium Pack, includes a collectible lamp modeled after Pixar's bouncy short star that is designed to hold a complete Pixar Blu-ray collectio. In addition, Pixar also created a short film titled George and AJ, written and directed by storyboard artist Josh Cooley. This shows what the 2 Shady Oaks retirement home workers did after Carl left with his house. It was initially available for purchase at the iTunes Store and then was later posted to Disney Pixar's Facebook and YouTube pages. 65, 66, in its first week. It sold 3,969,792 units, $66,057,339, and eventually reached 10,811,453 units, $182,591,149.67, becoming the best-selling DVD among those released in 2009 in units sold. It also became the third in sales revenue behind Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen and Twilight. 68, the rental release of the film to Netflix, Blockbuster. And Redbox was controversial since it failed to include closed captioning. 69, Disney faced a consumer backlash over this. 70, and quickly released a statement that this removal was an unfortunate error and that it was moving to correct the issue. 71, Up was released on 4K Blu-ray on March 3, 2020. The character of Carl Fredricksen has received mostly positive reception. Bill Capodali, author of Innovate the Pixar Way, praised Carl for his ability to be a jerk and likable at the same time. 101, Wall Street Journal editor Joe Morgenstern described Carl as gruff, comparing him to Buster Keaton, but adds that this begins to wear thin as the movie progresses. 102, he has been compared with Spencer Tracy, an influence on the character, by The Washington Post editor Ann Hornaday. 103, and Empire Online editor Ian Freer, who describes him as similar to a Guess Who's Coming to Dinner era Tracy. 104, Entertainment Weekly editor Lisa Schwartzbaum described his appearance as a cross between Tracy and an eccentric out of a George Booth cartoon. 105, Time editor Richard Corliss also makes the comparison, calling him a trash compacted version of Tracy. 106, he has also been compared to Walter Matthau, another inspiration for the character's design, by LA Weekly editor Scott Founders, suggesting that actor Ed Asner was channeling him while performing the role of Carl. 107, Variety editor Todd McCarthy described Carl as a combination of both Tracy and Matthau. 99. The relationship between Carl and his wife Ellie has been praised in several media outlets. In his book Disney, Pixar, and the Hidden Message of Children's Films, author M. Keith Booker described the love between Carl and Ellie as touching, while also describing the scene of the two of them aging as a masterpiece of its own kind. He was not sure how much children would appreciate the scene, commenting that his son was squirming in his seat during the scene. 108, Real Views editor James Berardinelli praised their relationship, stating that it brought a tear to his eye in a way no animated film has done, including anything by famed anime director Hayao Miyazaki. 109, Ann Hornaday praised the prologue, describing it as worthy of Chaplin in its heartbreaking poignancy. 103, Chicago Tribune editor Michael Phillips praised the scene, describing it as an emotional and cinematic powerhouse, and that he also was nearly moved to tears. However, Salon editor Stephanie Zacharek criticized the love between Carl and Ellie, describing their marriage as resembling a dental adhesive commercial more than a real relationship. Edward Asner was praised in several media outlets for his portrayal of Carl. San Francisco Chronicle editor Mick LaSalle praised Asner as a great choice due to having a grumpiness to his voice that is not truly grumpy, but rather coming from a protective stance. 111, Entertainment Weekly editor Lisa Schwartzbaum praised Asner's acting, stating that he has a Lou Grant authority to his voice. 105, Time editor Richard Corliss stated that Asner had the gruffness and deadpan comic timing to bring Carl to life. 10, The Boston Globe editor Ty Burke concurred with this, stating that his Lou Grant-like voice had not diminished with time. 112, USA Today editor Claudia Puig praised Asner's delivery, Describing it is superb. 113. The formulation of Russell as an Asian American character, along with the casting of an Asian American in the role, was met positively as well. Both Nagai and the film were awarded by the East-West Players for the depiction of Russell. 114. EWP lauded Pixar for the creation of the character, stating, "We are proud to honor a very progressive film company like Pixar who cast an Asian American character alongside an elderly one to play the leads in a feature film." 114. The character is noted as Pixar's first lead Asian character. 115. And was further positively received within the added context of historical non-Asian castings for Asian roles in entertainment. 34. 115. Asian American organizations and entertainment websites, such as media watchdog Media Action Network for Asian American. Edward Asner was praised in several media outlets for his portrayal of Carl. San Francisco Chronicle editor Mick LaSalle praised Asner as a great choice due to having a grumpiness to his voice that is not truly grumpy, but rather coming from a protective stance. 111. Entertainment Weekly editor Lisa Schwartzbaum praised Asner's acting, stating that he has a Lou Grant authority to his voice. 105. Time editor Richard Corliss stated that Asner had the gruffness and deadpan comic timing to bring Carl to life. 10. The Boston Globe editor Ty Burr concurred with this, stating that his Lou Grant-like voice had not diminished with time. 112. USA Today editor Claudia Puig praised Asner's delivery, describing it as superb. 113. The formulation of Russell as an Asian American character, along with the casting of an Asian American in the role, was met positively as well. Both Nagai and the film were awarded by the East-West Players for the depiction of Russell. 114. EWP lauded Pixar for the creation of the character, stating, "We are proud to honor a very progressive film company like Pixar who cast an Asian American character alongside an elderly one to play the leads in a feature film." 114. The character is noted as Pixar's first lead Asian character. 115. And was further positively received within the added context of historical non-Asian castings for Asian roles in entertainment. 34. 115. Asian American organizations and entertainment websites, such as media watchdog Media Action Network for Asian Americans, MANAA, racebending.com, and Angry Asian Man praised the character and Pixar for its diverse character depictions, noting the general lack of Asian American lead characters and Asian actors cast in entertainment. 116. 117. In an interview with NPR in 2013, Angry Asian Man's Phil Yu reflected on the character's lack of typical Asian stereotyping, stating, "You know, he just happens to be Asian and he's, you know, really adorable character. But that kid could have been of any ethnicity, but they made the effort to make him Asian. Just a little color, you know. And it's really wonderful when that kind of thing happens where they don't have to play that up and make it like a thing or a joke, which happens a lot." Accolades. Edit. Main article. List of accolades received by Up. Up won 2 awards at the 82nd Academy Awards. For Best Animated Feature and Best Original Score. 119, it is the second of 3 animated features to have been nominated for the Academy Award for Best Picture. Beauty and the Beast and Toy Story 3 were also nominated for Best Picture in their respective years. Up also won Best Original Score and Best Animated Feature Film at the 67th Golden Globe Awards. 120, it was nominated for 9 Annie Awards in 8 categories. Winning 2 awards for Best Animated Feature and Best Directing in a Feature Production. 121, Up also received the Golden Tomato from Rotten Tomatoes for highest rating feature in 2009. And Best Reviewed Animated Film. 122, with an approval of 98% from film critics. Based on 259 reviews. 123, at the 2010 Kids' Choice Awards the film won Favorite Animated Movie. 124, Jordan Nagai was awarded the Breakout Performance Award at the 44th East-West Players 44th Anniversary Visionary Awards and silent auction for his role as Russell by the East-West Players. 114, the organization also awarded the film with the EWP Visionary Award for its progressive casting of an Asian American lead. 114, Doug the Talking Canine was awarded the Palm Dog Award by the British Film Critics as the best canine performance at Cannes Film Festival, winning over the fox from Antichrist and the black poodle from Inglourious Basterds. 125, video game. On May 26, 2009, a video game of the same name was released for multiple platforms. Another video game, Connect Rush, a Disney Pixar adventure, was released on March 20, 2012, for the Xbox 360. It features characters from 5 of Pixar's films: Up, The Incredibles, Cars, Ratatouille, and Toy Story. 126, in 2018. A Lego The Incredibles video game was released which featured several references to Up and its characters. Spin-off series, Edit, Doug Days, Edit, on December 10, 2020, on Disney Investors Day. An animated series taking place after the events of the film titled Doug Days was announced for Disney. The series will focus on Doug and Carl as they reside in suburbia. The series will premiere in the fall of 2021. 127. See also, Edit, Cluster Ballooning Launcher Larry Flight Vera Coking, a real estate holdout Edith Macefield, another real estate holdout references.